Well, as of the time of this taping, we await the final closing the chapter on the Department of Education, which is happening. And I want to take a moment to just talk to you guys about how significant this move is. This is another promise made, promise kept. But I mean, you look at what a turning point this is in American history, that with this Trump administration, for decades, you've had a federal government that has grown. I mean, you think about what our founding fathers intended our government to be, and you look at what it has grown into. I mean, we fought a war for far less than what they're doing to us now. And you look at the bloat and you look at how big they've become, how powerful they've become, how much power they've taken away from you, and how much say they have in like every aspect of your life. And so you look at how much they're getting and how much they're failing us. The students are no different. The Department of Education is no different. You've got this department that was, it had 1980, I believe, was when it was its inception. And since then, they burned $3 trillion of taxpayer money. You've had this government education that has led to poorly educated students in a system that is designed for, like social conformity, not individual excellence. You see it in the test results. You see all of these, in multiple different places across this country. We spend more money per pupil than all of these other developed countries, but yet we are falling behind. Something has to change. And so I want to play White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, who explained this announcement that most of that department is just going away. Watch.
The Department of Education was founded in the 1970s, and since then we have spent more than $3 trillion at this federal bureaucracy. What has been the return on that investment for the American taxpayer? Levels that are less than ideal, less than proficient. Our children's test scores are incredibly concerning when it comes to reading rates, literacy rates, math, and science test scores. The numbers prove that, and this president is finally taking much needed action to return education to where it belongs, and that's to educators closest to students in their classrooms in their respective states.
So again, you look at how the federal government has operated for decades now, and you see them. I remember saying it so often during COVID, you guys, I'm sure will remember as well. When do you know the government to give you back power that they have taken from you? When have you known the federal government to say, okay, all right, we're sending this back to the states. It's going to be up to you now. We're going to relinquish the power that we have stolen from the states and return it where it belongs. You never see the federal government operate that way. Once they take power, once they seize power, they wield it for forever. And while they're wielding it, they try to decide how they can get more. And here you have the Trump administration 2.0 coming in and saying, you know what, this isn't working. And as much as the teachers unions and Randy Weingarten want to cry about how if we just had more money, you already have all of our money and you're not doing anything with it. And our kids are coming out dumber and more confused than ever because all you're doing is teaching them about the 95 genders that you've made up. But you're not teaching them reading, writing, and arithmetic. Something has to change. And you know what? I understand that there will be people in, because we've had this conversation before, in California, in New York. When that gets returned to the states, it doesn't get better for them. But guess what? You have the ability to make that choice if you want to pick up by your bootstraps, pick yourself up, move to a place that's more conservative that you want to raise your kids in. That is your choice. But what we are doing right now isn't working. And I applaud the Trump administration for following through on another promise that they made.
Yeah, look, I said from the beginning, and my words weren't that popular. I said from the beginning, my favorite secretary pick was Linda McMahon. And people like, Jaco, why Linda? People don't know her history. Sitting in Connecticut on state school boards, having a semi-tractor trailer for welding, wanting to go through welding school herself, the heart for the child. It's about time that the American child wins again. It's been a very long time. She's a businesswoman. She's going to execute with meticulous fashion. I believe the strongest victories we're going to see from this administration is going to come from Linda McMahon and RFK Jr., the two individuals that touches the family, the home. That's where the biggest wins are going to come. Yes, I want lower property taxes and all those things, but I want our children to be safe, and she's going to execute. Now, remember, an EO is not a law.
Sure.
So now, Congress, and Linda said it in her confirmation hearing, it has to be an act of Congress to do this. So Congress is now going to have to stand with this Secretary, McMahon, who's working herself out of a job. That was her mandate.
Yeah.
And the president, and say, it is time. And to your point, give it back to the states that when the states fail, the constituent would have a clear line of sight who's failing their family so they can primary them and remove them. It's no longer, the government. It's a person. And that's what's happening here. And California will fail their students, but
they already are.
But the buck will stop with an individual with a name badge, not the Department of Education. Right? And last point, remember, Linda McMahon clearly stated that no money is being removed from the student. It's not what's happening here. So don't believe this cockamamie nonsense where, students are going to suffer. No, they've been suffering. Now the funds are going to be placed in the hands of those who will be held accountable that the student actually gets the worth that the American taxpayer is paying for.
Right. And I think there's something to what you said, too, that I want to just kind of expand upon, and then I want to get your thoughts, Matt, that when you're talking about the RFK pick and the Linda McMahon pick, but you're talking about the Department of Education and all of the moves that RFK, I anticipate that he will make with health. The return on investment of brighter children, brighter futures, healthier children, healthier futures is immeasurable.
Yes.
Immeasurable. I mean, you're talking about such a return on investment in growing healthier communities, healthier children, more well-developed children who can go out and change the world someday. What we're doing right now in those in those two places, what we're doing is not working in a lot of places, but with regard to those particular places, there is such a return on investment there that is not even talked about or being explored.
What it means, though, is it's a massive blow to the Marxists, right? Because what they're trying to do, a dumber population is easier to control, which is, we're seeing the fruits of that right now, like 20 years of it, and there's the odd parent that said, you know what, I'm talking about like parents that aren't in the more conservative red states, because, to me, when a friend of mine is in Georgia and he can send his kid to state school, I'm like, that is just not an option in California. Like, it's just not. And it's actually not much of an option in Texas, actually. And that's why so many people are homeschooling, because you mentioned the family, Jaco. It's really important, because when you send your kids off, and we're very much, like me and my wife are very much, because my wife did ballet, but she also taught ballet. And she was very much of the mindset that when that kid crosses over into the ballet studio, they're yours. Like, that you have to take care of them and treat them like they're your own. If you are right-minded, that's a good thing.
Sure.
If you're a wrong-minded person, that's a really, really bad thing. Yeah. So what we've been doing over these past years is still thinking the mentality back in the day that people have the same values as you. And they don't. And we've had a steady stream of people going into academia that are Marxists, that are that they don't have the vocation like it used to be. And oddly enough, you look at the same thing with doctors. They don't have the vocation they used to be, which was do no harm. I've got to try and help these kids. Now it's like, how do I get them hooked on Ritalin? How do I get them prescribed stuff so I can make more money, so I can have a second home in Cabo, right? So this is, it is such a massive paradigm shift. And what concerns me, and what we're seeing with the violence against Tesla, is the Marxists, and that's what it is. I think it's very difficult for Americans to understand truly and to accept how their system has been subverted so badly, right? So they're losing their grip on this country. Like, this is absolutely monumental. And you can see the way that the Europeans are behaving because they're in the same situation, right? Because they're a bunch of Marxists as well. And so if America gets it right, it really does mean this ripple effect across the world of freedom, which America was always about, right? That's the America that I grew up loving. So it's gonna be very, very bumpy, and we have to watch the behavior of politicians, especially conservative politicians, and the way that, to your point about the fact that they better all vote for it, every single one of them, or they are gone.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's two separate ideals, right?
Yeah.
This is what we're looking at. Do you want a family-centric healthcare system and education system, or do you want to give it up to the Marxist and state? Lose your kids.
I'm just gonna leave it here. Booty juice guy, public school graduate. Okay. If you like this clip and you want to see the full episode, click here. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, come on, you know you do. Click here.